Hey, good evening. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita, Wisdom of Gita by Lakshmi on this March 18th, Tuesday evening. Thank you for attending. Hi, Trish. Jai Krishna, how are you? Good to see you
Hello.
both.
Yeah, nice to see you. A nice day of association for me. I spoke with Priya Dayananda and Brahmatirtha on a Zoom call today. It was a really sweet morning.
Well, wonderful. That's good association for sure. So, have any of you meditated on what we spoke about last week? Any further questions that you would like to ask? We are happy to try
I
to
didn't have any
facilitate.
questions, but I did go through and read the first 46
Oh,
verses.
good. Okay. All right. So it gave you a sense of the first chapter as the setting, introduction to many different personalities. Good. Okay. Do you have a hard time with the names, Trish?
No, reading the Sanskrit is a little new, but
Right.
my pronunciation is pretty good. I find it to be more like remembering than learning.
Yeah, Sanskrit is pretty straightforward, especially with the help of the transliterations that we have, especially in Prabhupada's Gita. He lays it all out, the Sanskrit, the actual Devanagari script, and then the Roman transliteration, and then the word for word, and then the translation, and then there's a commentary. So it really, I mean, reading through a verse, you have a good comprehensive overview of what that verse is about. So I'm glad you read all 46. It's Mukti,
Jai Prabhupada.
Dandavats,
Jai.
Dandavats pranams.
Jai.
Good to see you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
We're only on the second verse. I'll give a little recap of what we did on the first verse and starting with the second, okay? So the first verse, if you remember, what did we speak a lot about in the first verse? Who can sum it up in one word? What did we speak a lot about in the first verse?
Dharma, duty.
There you go, Amy. You're taking notes, I see. Yeah, the first verse reads, Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharma Kshetre Kuruk Kshetre, Samaveda Yuyutsavaha, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva, Kim Kurvata Sanjaya. So, and the translation is Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So it's not a question, just to recap a little bit, it's not so much a question of Dhritarashtra wanting to know what they did, because if you think about it logically, it's pretty simple. They're standing there ready to kill each other. So that question that Dhritarashtra posed to Sanjaya is more of a past tense question. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a past tense question, meaning, what happened? What was the situation that got us into this mess? And Sanjaya, as we said before, Sanjaya is endowed with a special vision. It's called a transcendental vision, a spiritual vision. He was given that special vision where he could see, even though they were hundreds of miles away from the actual battlefield, Sanjaya, in his mystic meditation, could see things real time as if he was watching TV. So another point is he's asking Dharma Kshetra. We're on the battlefield of Dharma. We're in the place of Dharma. Kuru Kshetra. And that battlefield of Dharma is also called Kurukshetra. It's the place of the Kuru dynasty. And actually, the two forces that are fighting here are of the Kuru dynasty. The only person who's changing that around, making it them versus us, or the Pandavas versus the Kurus, is Duryodhana. He's changing that. He's dividing this up because he, in the first place, was the one who created this division and this enmity, and thusly this battle. So we're here on the battlefield of Dharma, on the battlefield of the Kurus, and assembled here. So Samaveta means assembled here. Yuyutsava, we're desiring to fight. Mamaka, my sons versus the Pandavas. So this is the question that Dhritarashtra asked. And he says that they're assembled in this place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight. What did they do? So that question is the first statement of the Bhagavad Gita. And if you remember, I told you there are two dialogues going on within the framework of the Bhagavad Gita. This dialogue between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, which only out of the 700 plus verses, I think maybe Sanjaya speaks maybe 80 verses. Dhritarashtra speaks 2 or 3 times. Most of it is spoken by Krishna and Arjuna, and most everything is spoken by Krishna. So that's kind of like the breakdown of the over 700 verses that are spoken in the Bhagavad Gita in terms of the two dialogues. So we can see the dialogue between Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra are really secondary compared to who is delivering the essential wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Krishna to Arjuna. So this is an important thing to note. The division is created not by the Pandavas themselves, but more like Duryodhana. Sanjaya has this mystic vision. Do you know, did I mention this last class, that Dhritarashtra was actually offered the opportunity? Now take this into consideration. Dhritarashtra, he's a great personality. He's a powerful warrior. And I did mention to you last time he's blind. And the qualification, or rather disqualification, of Dhritarashtra not assuming the full throne, only interim emperorship, is because of his blindness. And the blindness is not really referred to as his inability for his eyes to work. It actually means his inability to understand things in proper perspective because of attachment. And this is a very key component in the Bhagavad Gita. Because another question that can be asked, a subsidiary question that can be asked, Dhritarashtra, why did Dhritarashtra allow this to happen? It was moved, this whole dynamics of war and battle and usurping the throne, that was coming from his son, Duryodhana, his oldest son. Why did Dhritarashtra allow this? If he was a great personality, which he was, why did he allow this? And the answer is attachment. And getting back to the question I asked myself, why did Dhritarashtra refuse mystic vision that was offered to him by Sanjaya's guru, Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva first offered. Now, can you imagine a blind person denying vision? Doesn't make any sense, right? Because more than anything, what a blind person would like to do is to see. But Dhritarashtra did not want to see. Why? Because the word that's mentioned here, Dharma Kshetra, is an indicator. Dharma Kshetra means the place of Dharma. Who's acting according to Dharma? The Pandavas, Arjuna and his brothers. They're acting righteously, duty bound, morally. They're acting within the scope of Dharma. So the reason Dhritarashtra was so afraid, and we'll see in the next verse, Duryodhana, the same thing, is they're fighting in a place that is a vortex of dharmic potency. So what does that mean? That means it's going to benefit those who are living according to Dharma. The dharmic personalities that are in a vortex of Dharma energy, who's going to benefit? The people who are not following Dharma? So Dhritarashtra knows this. So one of the reasons is it's explained by the great acharyas as to why Dhritarashtra refused the offer that Vyasadeva presented to him, the mystic vision, Divya Chakshus, the transcendental vision, mystic vision, is because he didn't want to see what was going to happen. His attachment is so strong. Attachment is what causes avidya. Asakti, which is attachment, is what causes avidya, which is loss of knowledge or ignorance. So another question that might be asked as a preface to the next verse is, on the opposing side, those that oppose, there were some very powerful and great personalities opposing the Pandavas. They were opposing the Pandavas. Now, why would great and powerful persons oppose the Pandavas? We have Bhishma. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the Mahabharata, Bhishma is considered the senior of the Kuru dynasty. He's noble, he's truthful, he's a powerful warrior, he's a great general, he's extremely wise and respected by all. But yet he's fighting against the Dharma side. It's a little easier to understand Dhritarashtra because Dhritarashtra has his sons and their attachment to contend with. But Bhishma, why would he do that? Another great personality is Dronacharya. Dronacharya is the warrior guru. He's the teacher of martial arts to all the great warriors on the battlefield. So his position of respect and importance is really great. And he's a Brahmin. He's not even a Kshatriya or a warrior. He's a Brahmin. But yet again, like Bhishma, he has nobility, he has knowledge, he is respected, he has a pure heart. Why does he fight? Why does he oppose the Pandavas? And for every personality that is lining up against the Pandavas, the answer is pretty clear. And the answer is this. They, due to their attachment to duty, they were attached to an erroneous concept of duty or dharma. In other words, have you ever heard of samurai in Japan? Samurai were great warriors in Japan. And what they did is they fought on behalf of a nobleman, and they gave their allegiance and their nobility to their lord, so to speak, the person that they fought for. Similar, Dhritarashtra was the king. Bhishma, Dronacharya, and all the other great personalities who fought against the Pandavas on the side of Duryodhana had a sense of loyalty to the throne, basically. That's what it boils down to. They had a sense of loyalty to the throne. And therefore, they perceived that as the proper dharma. Whereas those who fought for the Pandavas mostly came from other kingdoms, other kings, like Drupada. He was Draupadi, or the Pandava's wife, Draupadi. King Drupada had his own kingdom, and he was the king of that kingdom, and he was the father of Draupadi, the wife of Arjuna and the four other Pandava brothers. So he aligned himself. He was able to be removed enough so he could see proper dharma. Because even Krishna says, dharma without compassion is not dharma at all. And because Duryodhana displayed an attitude which lacked compassion, that even though he demanded, there's two ways you get respect. My teacher, Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said this. There's two ways. One is you demand respect, and the other way is you command respect. And commanding respect is much better, because by virtue of your actions, you are earning another person's respect. Whereas if you demand respect, you may have position, right? And look, I don't want to wax political here, but we see in current day government, we see what's going on, that you have to toe the line, or otherwise you're out of there. So you demand respect, but that's the lesser way. Commanding respect is the greater way, because by virtue of your action, how do you know somebody? How do you really know somebody? You meet somebody, right? Yeah, you have some kind of intuitive feeling about this person, but did you ever think of what is the way to know somebody? What would you give me some guesses out there? How would you come to know somebody? Who would have a guess? Srihari, can you guess? How would you know somebody?
In order to get to know someone, you have to find, well, you don't have to, but conversing with them and finding similar traits, and it's just to me, it's always been easy. It's just how you do it is.
It's
like
always difficult
like how
breaking down the
just
science
like
of it.
walking.
Yeah. Anyone have any other thoughts on that? How do you get to know somebody?
Find out what they do.
Find out what they do. That's a good one.
I think also
You
time, right? The time you spend with them, the more
Yes.
time, right?
Yeah, the association that you
Yeah.
keep with them. I'll
Mm.
tell you the way I do it, and then I'll also add some of the Veda. Anyone have any other input? Like to say anything else? How would you do it?
When you get to know someone, you have to share about yourself. And that's how they
Yeah.
open up to you.
you have to have that confidence, right? To
Meeting
open
people
up
on
to
the same platform.
meeting a person on the same platform.
Correct, like a class or
Oh, I
in,
see. Okay. Work, right?
yeah.
But don't you do this? I always observe a person. I'm an observer. I like to observe things. I like to look at things. So, I don't want you to feel like I'm looking at you, or, but really, I'm an observer. I observe people's actions, the way they act. I observe because I guess because I'm an English major, I observe the language they use. You know, like if someone's peppering their conversation a lot with a curse word, that to me registers. You know, so I observe their action. I observe their words. I observe their body language because I studied in 1989, I studied neuro-linguistic programming with Tony Robbins. And I learned a lot. I really felt like I learned a lot in terms of understanding people from the neuro-linguistic programming thing. And one other thing is in terms of communication, there's a couple of things to communication. The first thing to communication is tone of voice, body language, and content. Do you know of those three from the neurolinguistic programming perspective? What is the most important aspect of effective communication?
Intonation.
Tone, yeah. Tone of voice is the number one. The last one is knowledge or content. And the one in between is body language. We pick up a lot inadvertently, whether we know it or not, we do pick up a lot. The difference between a person who's aggressive and a person who's passive, a person, who they have movements which subliminally will convey their aggression or their passivity or whatever. So all of these things are there. So these are some of the components in terms of communication. Duryodhan, when we study his language, which is going to be now the second verse, we see the motivation behind his language. Let's give a for instance here. This is verse 2, text 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. And the Sanskrit, I like to read the Sanskrit because for those of you who are not exposed to it that much, it's good to hear it. Sanskrit's such a rich, vibrant language. It really stimulates the brain too. Sanjaya Uvacha. So Dhritarashtra asked the question, what are they doing? Sanjaya Uvacha. Uvacha means said. So Sanjaya says, Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyutham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Translation, it means Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhan went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Now, that doesn't seem like much of a response, but according to the great acharyas, there's a lot in there. We have Sanjaya seeing in real time in his mystic vision, he's seeing the battlefield alignment there, arrangement, the two forces on either side and the prepping for the battle. And so he wants to know what's going on. So Sanjaya says, okay, here's what your son's doing. Your son, Duryodhan, is now he's looking at the army, and after he assesses, because it's quite natural in battle that the military commanders assess who they're fighting. They look at, how many cavalry do they have, how many spearsmen do they have, how many elephants do they have, how many archers do they have, and the force of the Kauravas, the Kurus, Duryodhana's force, they were almost twice as big. The divisions are called akshahinis. So Duryodhana had 11 akshahinis of warriors, which literally means around 400 million warriors. And Arjuna's side has 7 akshahinis of warriors, which is almost half. So we're looking at something between 400 million to versus 200 million or 250 million. I'd have to do the math to get the exact figure, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So it's normal. Arjuna asks Krishna to pull my chariot, right, in front of the army so I can look at who I'm going to fight. And that's what Krishna does. He pulls him right in front of all the commanders. And then Duryodhana, the first thing that he does is he says, number one, looks over the army, arranged and how they arrange. So he looks over the army, he notes the arrangement of military formation, and then what does he do? Then he goes to his guru. There's something wrong with that picture. And when I tell you what's wrong with that picture, you'll get a sense of the difference of perspective that Duryodhana has, the leader of the Kuru army.
And Sanjaya.
Huh?
And Sanjaya, compared to Sanjaya.
Sanjaya, and more specifically, Arjuna. Because Arjuna, he looks at the army, but first he asks Krishna, his guru, my dear Krishna, please, by your mercy, by your grace, can you kindly take? So in Bhakti Yoga, the etiquette is you go to your teacher first, and you get your teacher's blessings. That's the common etiquette. Now, when we don't see it so much nowadays in this day and age of Kali Yuga, but in that particular time period, etiquette was still very, very strong principle. So what Duryodhana should have done is he should have first gone to his guru, like Arjuna did, and said to him, Guruji, Dronacharya, please, give me permission to go in front of the army and assess them and then get your advice. That's what he doesn't do that. And coupled with following the proper course of etiquette, the proper course of respect, what should be done is the attitude should be right. Remember we said, how do we judge a person? You listen to a person's words, you look at their actions, you check out their body language. There's several different ways, assessors that you use to understand a person. So we look at Arjuna, humility to his teacher, Krishna. He asked Krishna, please, can we do this? He gets Krishna's permission. Krishna sanctions it. They do it. Duryodhana, he goes and he first assesses. And then he goes to his teacher. He goes to Dronacharya, who's his teacher. Now, what happens? What kind of mindset does Duryodhana go to Dronacharya with? Again, it's different than Arjuna's. Arjuna, by looking at the army, Arjuna doesn't become fearful. He becomes what? Compassionate. Arjuna's response is, oh my God. Oh, excuse me, Krishna. No, just joking. He says, look who is in front of me. My grandfather, Bhishma. My martial arts teacher, Dronacharya. My cousins, Duryodhana and his 99 brothers. And he lists, and that elicits a response of compassion. Arjuna had no worry about his martial arts ability. He was the topmost warrior, archer in particular, of all the warriors. He was the topmost. So it wasn't him having fear, him having compassion. What was he thinking? I'm going to have to kill grandfather Bhishma Dev. I'm going to have to kill my guru Dronacharya. That elicited a response of compassion. So, like I said, we're observing his words and his actions. His words are words of compassion. His action is action of compassion. Duryodhana he doesn't go to his guru first. He assesses on his own, which gives you an indication of his pride. And then he goes to his guru. Why? Because what does he see? He sees in numbers a lesser army, as we said. But he sees Arjuna, the most fearsome archer in all humanity. He sees his brother, Bhima. Bhima has the strength of 1,000 warriors. And the way he wields a club is devastating. The club was his main weapon. Each warrior leans towards a particular weapon. Arjuna's weapon was archery, bow and arrow. Bhima, his older brother, his weapon was a club. So he sees Arjuna, he sees Bhima, he sees the other three brothers, Yudhisthira, who's also a great warrior, and the youngest boys, Nakul and Sahadev, who are also great warriors. First off, he sees those five. Then he sees other kings from other kingdoms who were also noteworthy in terms of their prowess, their military prowess. Now, it was prophesied that Dronacharya would be killed by a warrior on Arjun's side named Drishtadyumna. And Drishtadyumna was the son of King Drupada. So when they saw, can you imagine? Whether you believe the prophecy or not, it certainly strikes a little fear in the heart, that this particular man is going to kill Dronacharya. Now, objectively, no one could see anyone killing Dronacharya. He was the teacher of martial arts. Everything they knew, he taught them. So he knew everything that they knew, plus more, because he was the teacher. So when they saw Drishtadyumna, they saw all these different words. So what was Duryodhana's response? And this gives you, again, insight into his mindset, into his character. He was afraid. Even though he saw less of an army in numbers wise, he saw some pretty awesome warriors there. So after he assesses, then he goes to his guru. And do you think he goes with a humble state of mind? Oh, dear Guruji, please bless me and please give me insight and give me wisdom. No, he goes to Dronacharya. He is afraid not only of who's on the other side, but he is afraid that Dronacharya and Bhishma in particular, the two greatest, most fearsome warriors on the Kuru's side, who were also organizing the strategy against the Pandavas, he was afraid that they were too attached to the Pandavas. Because the Pandavas had kind and noble hearts, and they were devotees of God, and they were kind and compassionate. So it was quite natural for Dronacharya and Bhishma to have attachment for the five boys that they're going to have to fight against and try to kill. It's quite natural. So Duryodhana, first off, he sees who he has to fight against. Second off, he surmises, oh, my biggest warriors, they have a special relationship with these five brothers. That may mean that they won't fight their hardest. So with that in mind, he goes to his guru, not for blessings, not in humility. He goes to Dronacharya to anger him. He wants to get him really ticked off so that you need some element of anger when you're fighting, right? You just can't go, oh, I'm going to throw a spear at you and I'm going to shoot an arrow at you. You've got to have some ferocity. That's the one thing I've noticed when you fight is you're either all in or you're not there. When you see a fighter, they get hit. Like who's your favorite? If you have a favorite boxer, who is your favorite boxer? Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. Who's your favorite fighter? If you ever observe those guys, they're all in. They get smashed in the jaw, they shake it off. They're all in. They are not deterred. They are committed. So Duryodhana was afraid that both Dronacharya, the guru, the martial arts guru of the five Pandava brothers, as well as Duryodhana and all of his brothers, as well as most of the warriors on the battlefield, they were afraid that Dronacharya would have some affection that would preventing him from being all in the battle. And same similarly with Bhishma. So what does he do? He said, Duryodhana goes to his teacher and speaks the following words. Let's see what he speaks. This is text 3. Oh, my teacher. Oh, let's read the Sanskrit. Pasyaitam Pandu Putranam Acharya Mahitim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Sisyena Dimata. Dimata. Dimata means very intelligent. So, oh my teacher. So now we got Duryodhana, right? We're comparing, trying to know somebody. We're looking at Arjuna, what his attitude was, what his attitude of humility, what his words were. My dear Krishna, folded palms. What? Please draw me in front. So here we have now insight to Duryodhana in the same position. So he says, "O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your underscore. Hey, Dronacharya, that's your disciple. who's making the battlefield alignments. You're at fault for this. That's your disciple. By your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Now, why does he mention the son of Drupada? That wasn't Arjuna, excuse me. He first mentions the son of Drupada. Drupada was the king I told you about that aligned himself with the Pandavas, and he had a son and a daughter. And neither the son nor the daughter were born from a woman. They were born from fire. They were the result of a great sacrifice that was performed, great mantras that were blessed, and what was asked, the intention of the sacrifice of King Drupada was to get a son that could defeat Dronacharya. Why? Dronacharya was his enemy, was Drupada's enemy, because Dronacharya was they went to school together. Dronacharya and Drupada went to school together, and they were good friends. But Dronacharya was a Brahmin. He came from a poor Brahmin family. And Drupada was a Kshatriya, a warrior, and he came from a wealthy lineage of nobility. So when they grew up, Dronacharya was a poor Brahmin, so poor that he could barely have enough food to eat. So his wife asked him, can you please go to your friend Drupada and ask him, for some. It could, because it's the right of the Brahmin to beg, because they take a vow. They don't live wealthy. They live very simply, and so they almost have a vow of poverty, so they can beg. So the wife tells Dronacharya, who's Brahmin, please go beg from your friend. Ask him for some land, or some ducats, or something. So Dronacharya didn't want to do that, but he, as most husbands do, they give in to their wives, and he gave in to his wife, and his wife, she said, please, please. So he goes, and Dronacharya goes there, and remember, they're old friends now. He pays his respects, to his old friend, and Drupada was very haughty. Why are you here? What is your reason for coming here? Oh, dear King Drupada, I'm coming here to beg. And Drupada basically insulted him. So as a result of that insult, eventually, I won't go through the whole story, but eventually Dronacharya was able to defeat Drupada, and he took half of his kingdom, just took half of his kingdom from him. So Drupada never forgot that. So the son of Drupada, he performed the sacrifice, and out of the fire came a son and a daughter. The daughter married the Pandavas, Draupadi. Draupadi means the daughter of Drupada. So she was eventually married to the Pandava boys, and the son, Drishtadyumna, was blessed to be able to defeat Dronacharya. So why does Duryodhana mention the son of Drupada? To get under Dronacharya's skin. He mentions the son of Drupada, who's prophesied to be your death, that you're going to you're going to meet your fate as a result of the son of Drupada. So what we're getting, what we're seeing, what we're observing, as I said, by observing one's actions, by observing one's words, by looking at one's body language, and you don't get it so much in the Bhagavad Gita, but you get it a lot in the Mahabharata, which the Bhagavad Gita is the moksha part of the Mahabharata, the spiritual part, which by studying you can get liberation. What we get from the Mahabharata is some of the body language of Duryodhana, very fierce and mean and condescending and proud, all of these attitudes that he conveys. So that's how we're able to know. So what we're getting here now in the setup of the Bhagavad Gita, we're getting to meet various personalities, and we're getting to get a feel of the mood of both sides. And you get a reason, you have an understanding of why the Pandavas really are slated to win, even though they are outnumbered. They're outnumbered, and one of the reasons they're outnumbered is because, again, let's look at words and actions and body language. When um, Krishna was asked who he'll fight for, Krishna says, I'm not going to fight. And the reason being, if Krishna fought on anyone's side, they were the sure winner, because the potency of Krishna was so great that no one could defeat him. So Krishna knew this. He didn't want to set this war in balance, out of balance. So when he was asked, Krishna says, I won't fight. My army can fight, but I'm not going to fight. Now, that caught Duryodhana's ear. Why? Because Krishna, number one, had a vast army. Number two, they were highly trained. And any side, either side that got Krishna's army would be almost guaranteed to win because they were so powerful an army. So Krishna says, I am not going to decide right now, whose side I will fight on. But what I'll do, I'm feeling tired. I'm going to lay down and take a nap. And when I wake up from the nap, the first person I see, that person will get their choice of either me or the army. So again, here's another insight. Krishna lays down. Where does Arjuna go? Who can guess? What position does Arjuna take? Krishna is laying down, and Arjuna and Duryodhana have to position themselves. And Duryodhana's thinking, I want to be seen first because I want Krishna's army. So where does Arjuna go? Who can guess?
Beat.
Ready.
Where?
You told us already.
To
I
his
did.
head.
No, to his Arjuna goes to his feet.
Arjuna goes to his feet.
Oh, his
Yes.
feet? Oh,
Yes. Why? Why? You remember why I said that? Who answered that? Was it Trish or Joanna?
Amy.
Amy.
Amy
Respect.
with good notes and memory. Amy,
Yeah.
why? Why the feet?
Respectful.
Amy?
Yeah,
Why
it's
did Arjuna?
respectful.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't hear you the first time. Yes. It's humility and respect. Again, we look at his actions, his character, his words, and we get an insight to who Arjuna is. Duryodhana goes to the head because he thinks that's the best position to be in. He thinks that when he gets up, he's going to, but he doesn't. Krishna just sits up. No, like he's doing a sit up. He sits up and where is he looking? He's looking straight ahead at his feet. So Arjuna gets first choice. And Duryodhana's like, wow, he's growling and, oh no. And Arjuna says, it's obvious, my dear Lord, I only want your association. And Krishna says, no, wait a minute. Before you make that decision, you know I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to pick up a weapon. And Arjuna says, just to have your association is all the blessing I need. And that was Arjuna's choice. And Duryodhana's on the side going, yay, I got the army, I got the army, yes. So again, we see the character, the mindset. And this is what we're getting introduced here. So Duryodhana goes to his guru and he tries to piss him off, tries to get him angry. You don't do that. That's not etiquette. It's not good etiquette. You always go with respect. That's proper etiquette. But instead, oh, the son of Drupada is there. Isn't he the one that prophesies to kill you? Oh, another person's over there. Yeah, isn't that someone you really literally hate? The next verse he says, Atra Sura Maheshvasa Bhimarjuna Sama Yudhi Yuyudhano Varatascha Drupadash Cha Maharataha. He calls them Maharatas. The word Maharata is the highest tier of warrior. In the Vedas, everything is broken down, everything is in a list. So even the kind of warriors there are different tiers of competency and ferocity in terms of being a warrior. So there are different levels, ratas. And these personalities that he just named, he said, these are Maharatas, great fighters, the greatest of fighters. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yudhana, Virata, and Drupada. So Duryodhana is trying here and to goad his teacher that you've got to really get angry. Otherwise, we're going to lose. Because look at what we're facing here. Look at the nature of these bowmen. They're like extraordinary. Now, if you read the Mahabharata, you want to get some insight into their warrior abilities. Arjuna could shoot an arrow. As he's shooting the arrow, he chants a mantra, and the mantra turns into an atomic bomb. It's called Brahmastra. Now this is a highly sophisticated atomic bomb because it doesn't kill people, randomly or just wantonly. It's the combination of a smart bomb. You know what a smart bomb is? A smart bomb is that it has a mechanism in it that when it's released, the person who is shooting off the bomb can put it into a doorknob. It can be so accurate that he can land the tip of that smart bomb at the doorknob of the house he wants to blow up. Like our military has drones, drone pilots, right? And when they calculate how to send a particular, either a drone, a predator drone, or a missile, Hellfire missile, or something like that, it's programmed. So Arjuna was able to program his arrow with a mantra, the potency of sound. And here in Bhagavad Gita, in Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, you get some real insight into the potency of sound. Materially, sound is very powerful. Like the military has a low frequency weapon that shoots out a low sound frequency, and it totally disorients and knocks over the people that it's being shot at. It's a really, really low, deep, loud frequency, and it totally confuses. That's nowadays. In these days, they didn't rely on machinery, they relied on sound vibration. So, by virtue of the sound vibration, Arjuna was able to do that. He was able to get such a powerful force out. So, Duryodhana is saying to Dronacharya, look at these warriors. If you don't get angry, if you don't get riled up, if you don't get ready to fight, we're going to lose this battle. You're going to get killed. I'm going to get killed. So he's just making all efforts to rile him up. You see the difference? Again, I'm pointing out the difference between Duryodhana and Arjuna. Arjuna is doing it out of compassion, out of humility, out of submissiveness. He's following Krishna's orders. Because Krishna says, you cannot allow the Kurus led by Duryodhana to have reign because they are adharmic. They are doing anything and everything to get the throne. They are not qualified. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, Yad yad acharati shreshtas tatat evetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute. What a leader does, what a great leader does, common men follow. That is the either blessing or the danger of a leader, one who is in office. There's two types of leaders. One who is qualified and properly installed, according to the Vedas. They are installed like deities. In other words, they are God's representative on earth, and they are treated as such because they are fully qualified to be treated as such. And the other one who manipulates to get the throne. So what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the warning shot that Krishna gives in terms of who we should choose as our leaders is what these men do, our leaders, common men will follow. One person asked me, who I wanted to vote for. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but I said, well, who I vote for is going to have an influence on my son and my son's behavior because I believe Krishna. And really, that's what's happening right now. What is the norm? The norm is to lie. It's the norm. It's the acceptable norm. I mean, politicians were always known for being liars. I remember once my grandfather was an Italian businessman, and when he came to America for visiting, he would stay at our house. And he was a pensive guy. He used to walk with his arms behind his back, and he was always thinking. And one time he was sitting by the window and he was looking out our window, and he said to me, "So, what are you going to be when you grow up?" I said, "Grandfather, I'm going to be a lawyer." Now he was a businessman. He hated lawyers. So he said, "So, you're going to be a lawyer, right?" And I said, "Yes, Grandpa." He said, "Are you a liar?" I said, "No, Grandpa." He said, "You won't be a lawyer." So, you want to be a politician? Yeah, Grandpa, you got to be a liar. And that's the kind of mood, the kind of leadership for our young to follow. And Krishna says, no, that can't be. So now we're getting insight into Arjuna's character. We're getting insight into Duryodhana's character, and it'll be played out for another several verses, and then we'll move into the second part of the Bhagavad Gita, which will be Arjuna's reasons why he doesn't want to fight the battle. Questions or comments? I want to try to keep it, as much on time as possible.
Yes.
Anyone have a question?
Who did you vote for?
Namato.
At least we have Tulsi.
I have
Huh?
one. Oops.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I'm just curious. You described Arjuna shooting his arrow like an atomic bomb. Is
Yes.
that your interpretation of what the text says?
It is the interpretation of what the text says.
Well, so I'm curious about that then, because this was written well before an atomic bomb existed, right? So,
Right. But let
what
me
is that
explain. Let me
exactly?
explain you this atomic bomb. When it hit its target, it only destroyed its target. It didn't throw out radiation.
Okay.
In other words, if it was shot, there wouldn't be like thousands of people poisoned by radiation poison. It didn't have that kind of poisoning, but it was an atomic interaction that created a very devastating type of explosion that totally did away with the target, whatever the target was. If it was a person, only the person got destroyed. If it
I'll
was
ask
a
this.
chariot, only the chariot.
I'm going to keep going with this for a second. So,
Go
in
ahead.
in Sanskrit, does it say atomic weapon?
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. If you look in the, if you, it's in the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita is called the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we
Yeah.
really all get into, if we all get into the Bhagavad Gita, we can do that too. But in one of the cantos of the Bhagavatam it says, calculating time by the atom. So atomic atoms were known, atomic potency was known way back then.
Fascinating.
Yes. The sophistication of the weaponry of that time is mind-boggling. And I tell you, if you even study Genghis Khan and some of the great historical leaders, military leaders, look at the weaponry that they use. I mean, we only see the movies, where they have bows and arrows and they're able to go on the side of their horse and do all that stuff. But they had far more advanced weapons than that. But the level of advancement, technological advancement that was there present in the Battle of Kurukshetra is mind-boggling.
Hmm.
Mind-boggling. There's a whole Shastra dedicated to weapons and how to use those weapons. It's called Dhanuр Shastra, Dhanur Veda. It's a whole section of the Vedas that's dedicated to the weapons and how to use them, how to fight. And that's what Dronacharya taught from. And that's what he taught Arjuna and Duryodhana. And that's why everyone was afraid of this battle. Imagine the level of sophistication these fighters had and the level of weaponry that they used. Just mind blowing. There's a word in Sanskrit called Vimana. You know what that is? Vimana? Vimana is a
Flying
flying,
machine.
flying machine. Flying machine. And it could be either made out of gross materials, because according to Gita, the material energy is broken into two parts: gross material energy and subtle material energy. The five basic components of gross material energy is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Ether being the space in between the atoms. The subtle elements, material elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. So a weapon can be made out of either gross elements or subtle elements. Vimana flying machines could be made out of either if it depended on the level of sophistication that the person who uh, made it or drove it had. Then they could wield these types of weapons based on their training.
There's a lot of indication from Sumeria also of advanced weaponry. And they say also that Sodom and Gomorrah were affected by nuclear weapons.
When they were destroyed.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, if you do a weapons study of the various cultures throughout the world, ancient cultures, you'll see there's some pretty far out stuff. Even look at Leonardo da Vinci, what he was messing with in his time. Because he was quite an amazing inventor, and he got fascinated by weapons, and he created some pretty far out stuff as far as flying machines too. It was known, at least they had drawings of it. Then I don't know if they have any replicas of it, but they certainly had his drawings of flying machines. Yeah, so we're talking about a whole other thing here, the Brahmastra weapon, and if you read the Mahabharata, Amy, if you have interest in this fascination, you'll see when the actual 18 days of battle, Arjuna does some amazing things. He shoots one arrow and it turns into 1,000. He's got one arrow in his bow and he pulls it back. Have you ever done archery before? So
Yes, I have. Yeah.
yeah. So you put the arrow in between your two fingers, and while you have it out like that, it's drawn out like that. He utters a mantra. The sound goes into the arrow, and based on what the mantra is, it'll it'll dictate to the arrow whether it turns into an atomic particle or it turns into a multi-particle. So Arjuna, he would shoot an arrow and it would go off his bow and then just go into 1,000 arrows.
Cool. Thank you.
That's in the Mahabharata or the Ramayana. You see passages which talk about that. And yeah, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but if you get someone that is, it's very hard for them to refute that that's what they're talking about there.
But is that allegory? Or are you supposed to believe that what they're telling you? Or is he just saying he was a very strong warrior and had powers? Are you supposed to believe that he did that?
You know what? I once asked that question too. And the answer I got was either way, it's amazing. Whether you accept it as actual or allegorical, it still was amazing. And still, specifically in relationship to the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita has that sound vibrational potency, that spiritual sound vibrational potency. That actually you can experience transformation. There's five major things. I don't remember all five of them in terms of what yoga does in terms of transformation. One of the first things yoga does in terms of transformation is to create a sattvic mind. It transforms. Did you study in your teacher training course the gunas? Do you remember that? Okay. That's an interesting study. You want to talk about understanding people and personality types and things like that. Really study the gunas, the modes of material nature. But transformation by sound, a mantra meditation, it actually creates a sattvic mind. And the sattvic mind is the platform by which you can attain Suddha Sattva. Suddha Sattva means pure, purity, pure goodness. No Sattva, when you have a sattvic mind, there's still a little tinge of rajas and tamas there. There's still a little passion and ignorance there. But when you get to the point of Suddha Sattva, there is no trace of the lower modes of raja or tama or passion or ignorance. There's no trace. It's totally been purged. And that's transformational. That causes character transformation. That's what brings out Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great spiritual master in our lineage. He says that the natural qualities of the soul are kindness, mercy, compassion, friendship, respect. These are natural qualities of the soul. So what happens when you go through transformation, those qualities come out. It's like when you get a diamond in the rough, right? Doesn't look like much. But then polish that diamond, look what happens. It's just jaw-dropping. We have the beauty which comes. It's the same thing with the soul. When the soul is covered by the gunas, by the influence of the gunas, because that's what the gunas are, they're influencing factors. It's really the diamond in the rough. But when you go through a transformational process like mantra meditation, bhakti yoga, etc., you start polishing the diamond. And then those qualities. Now, there is actually a verse which states that just by the practice of bhakti yoga, all the natural qualities of the demigods automatically come out in the character of a person. So it's less about having to change yourself and more about applying the sadhana in an effective way, and the change occurs. I mean, I see the change in myself, from when I first started in 1972 to now, I see the change of perspective, the openness of heart, the 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 kind of mercy just to see an animal suffer, it's just not it's intolerable to watch an animal in pain, what to speak of my grandmother. She was an old Italian farmer type lady. She used to grab chickens by the head and snap their bodies right off. And it was when I saw that when I was like 6 years old, grab it, snap, grab, snap. No, no, nothing. If I was to do that, I would start crying. Couldn't handle something like that. So it's that kindness, that compassion. Any other question or comment? I hope you enjoyed today's class.
I do. I do have a question.
Okay, Anuradha, shoot.
Yeah. In the text, the actual text, the paragraph, it doesn't really mention Arjuna. So all the things that you are telling us regarding of Arjuna go to in a humble way to his teacher, and how big of a warrior he is, it doesn't really say it in the text. So how, like, if a person that has no access to a teacher like you, thank you very much, by the way, but that we can learn about, but a other person that doesn't have the access to it, how do they know?
Yeah, you have to read the Mahabharata. A lot of Arjuna's character is laid out there, as well as the other. You don't really know much about Yudhisthira or Bhima in the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita is very specific. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna to Arjuna for the benefit of humanity, how they can have a methodology that will free them from suffering.
Yes, but
Can I tell you? Okay,
what I'm
go ahead,
saying,
say.
if like any person wants to start studying, and they also hear about a lot of the Bhagavad Gita, and they grab the book and they start reading, how, I mean, the whole interpretation that you just give us, it makes sense, and it's kind of like the essence of the book. So, but if there's nobody to really enrich ourselves with that, so how do we know how that person will know?
Do you know what the first principle of Bhakti Yoga is?
Trust.
Rupa goes, huh?
Trust.
Yeah, but the first principle that he puts out is Guru Pada Ashraya. You have to find the teacher.
Okay.
You can't get away from it, and that therein comes what Mukti just said.
Right.
That's why I went over knowing a person.
Okay.
When you associate with a person and you get to know that person, and what
Okay.
happens? Just think of any lasting relationship in your life, whether it's a spouse or your children or your parents or your best friends that you've known since childhood. Whatever lasting relationship is in your life, you do a study, an assessment of why is it a lasting relationship? Because you associated with that person and you developed trust, trust in that person.
It's
So,
finding a teacher and also submissively approaching the teacher.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now I know, but I didn't know that I have to, in order for me to understand Bhagavad Gita or go to the real knowledge about it, it's go to a teacher and learn from that interpretation from a already a knowledge person.
Well, how am I where I'm at? How am I able to tell you where I'm at? Because I went to my teacher. And the beauty of the Bhakti Yoga system is you can have many teachers.
Right. Okay.
You're not there's Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. And Diksha Guru means when you're really, really serious and you want to get initiated into the yoga system of bhakti, then you ask a Diksha Guru, someone who's qualified, to connect you to the lineage.
Right.
But if you find someone whose teachings inspire you, like when you hear their teachings, it really resonates with you, makes things clear, inspires you,
Yeah.
builds faith, builds trust, all those things. That's called Shiksha Guru. And the Shiksha Guru is the person who gives you knowledge. And according to our lineage, and even Prabhupada has said sometimes, depending on who it is, the Shiksha can be more important than your Diksha Guru.
Right.
It's important to have a Diksha Guru for the connection. But
Yeah.
if you find someone that really inspires you through the teachings, then you have to hold on to that person. Like I was fortunate. I had really good, not only did I have Prabhupada, but I met a Swami named Vishnu Janaswami. And I think had I not met him, I probably wouldn't have been inspired, to go as deep as I went because Prabhupada was knowledge. He was my foundation with knowledge. And Vishnu John Swami was that knowledge that Prabhupada was teaching in action.
Have you
He was
met
humble. Huh?
have you met Prabhupada?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question about this too.
Sure, Amy.
Sure. So end of the day, though, you can have a lot of gurus in your life, a lot of people that teach you a lot of things, right? But what is
Exactly.
day? I mean, end of the day, really, you're just you have to let all those gurus go, right? And just trust yourself.
Well, there is an element in bhakti, there's the element of intuition.
Well,
It has to,
to reach
it has
moksha, to reach moksha, right? And I don't know, this is getting very, but to reach moksha, I'm just, it's about me and my own relationship to the divine,
right.
right?
But the relationship with your teacher, the one who's connecting you to the methodology which allows you to attain moksha, that relationship is never broken. Because I think I went over this particular point, maybe in your teacher training class. I'm not sure if I went over it here, about the three aspects of divinity: Brahman, or the all-pervasive energy. Usually moksha refers to that, the merging into the totality of spiritual energy and becoming one with that. That's usually what the word moksha is used in relationship to. But there's two other aspects of divinity. One is called Paramatma. That means divinity within your heart that you
Mm-hmm.
can connect to. And then the third one is called Bhagavan. And Bhagavan means the supreme, the way Prabhupada describes it in Bhagavad Gita, the supreme personality of God, Godhead. Meaning, from the bhakti perspective, the bhakti yoga perspective, the most complete aspect of divinity is Bhagavan, because within Bhagavan, the other two exist. But within Brahman, you don't have Bhagavan, you don't have person. And within Paramatma, you don't have that supreme person either, the divine one that everyone, most religions say the one God, etc. So, from the bhakti perspective, it's less about moksha and more about prema. Let me describe that to you. Moksha means becoming free from samsara, the wheel of birth and death, and entering into your eternal position as spiritual self, spiritual soul. That moksha means you become free from the cycle, the repeated cycle of birth and death. And you can go to Brahman, become one with Brahman, become a drop of water in the river, or you can attain your lasting loving relationship with Bhagavan. When you are specifically focused on Brahman, that's called moksha. When you are specifically focused on Bhagavan, that's called prema. Your moksha or your liberation is divine love between lover and beloved. And that is the aspiration, is to be in that divine love mindset. Because at the time of death, the mind love mindset is so the prema, the love mindset is so strong, it helps us to transcend any attachments that we may have. And that love is when you have a beloved. And that beloved is Bhagavan, the supreme person. Moksha, when it's used, quite often is like, I'm being liberated from material realm and entering into the spiritual realm. And then depending on the yoga system that you take, it could be either Jnana Yoga brings you to Brahman. Patanjali Yoga usually brings you to Paramatma. And Bhakti Yoga brings you to Bhagavan. And that's why Krishna gives a little description of each as he talks to. When he delineates the methodology, the yoga system, which is one, Krishna indicates that there are karma yoga, dhyana yoga, the yoga of meditation, jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge, and bhakti yoga, the yoga of divine love.
And so I'm getting my head around this, but so no matter what path you take and what you call it, aren't they end of the day all the same thing? Or are they not?
They're not the same thing in terms of their destiny. They're the same thing in the sense that you want to get rid of the illusion of that the material elements cause you when you're in contact with them. So it's the same thing that way, that you want to be free from the illusion and you want to connect with reality. And the reality is broken up into those three divisions. So if, as a bhakti yoga practitioner, my destination, my smaranam, which means what I'm remembering, is the form of God, Krishna, Rama, any of the bhakti yoga meditations. So my connection through prema, through love, through my development of a loving relationship with that Supreme Personality, that's my meditation. In Jnana Yoga, it's not. You don't meditate on that because in Jnana Yoga, there is no form. According to Jnana Yoga, form is part of the illusion. You're illusion. You're deluded because you're thinking form is reality. But we can see this form is not reality. I'm growing old. I'm 75. How can that be reality? It's gonna it's gonna wither and die. That's what they're referring to. But that's not what bhakti is referring to. Bhakti is not referring to material form. It's talking about Satchit Ananda Vigraha. There's no literal translation for Vigraha in Sanskrit to English, but basically Vigraha means, it implies that there is a form, there is a person. So that form that's entirely made of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The very form, essence, is comprised not of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, but it is comprised of Sat Chit Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. That is the form in bhakti that you meditate upon,
And
not
there's
just any form.
and
Huh?
there's different paths for different ages. And for this age, the Bhakti Yoga Smarnam, remembering to remember your deity is the recommended path for this age.
Yeah.
But
And that's why also in this age, Kali Yuga, it's been simplified to mantra meditation and specifically the Hare Krishna mantra. That's why we focus on that mantra. But Amy, when my guru said, in answer to your question, there is no difference, and yet there is.
Well, I'll ask just one more thing. What I interpret from what you're saying,
Mhm.
right, is if they're not, so if I'm a follower of bhakti yoga,
Right.
then I'm saying that if you're a follower of a different type of yoga, that
Mhm.
your yoga maybe is
Inferior.
less good. Yeah, right, inferior, not taking you to the right, because I say, well, my yoga and my practice is the yoga, the practice.
And that's okay. That's fine. If there are some people who are just inclined for a whole lot of reasons I won't go into right now, that it's very hard for them to accept that God is a person, and therefore they are inclined to go towards the energy that emanates from that person, the Brahman. But Prabhupada gives a very nice purport in answer to that. It gives the reasons why a person just refuses to accept the logic of personal God. And it gives a really nice commentary. It's in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's the 10th verse, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, he says fear, anger, or attachment keeps us from our love relationship.
Ahankara.
Fear, huh?
Ahankara. False
Yeah,
ego.
false ego.
I have a question.
All right, I'm gonna go but thank you. This was a very wonderful conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's continue, Amy, because this conversation is not over.
I,
I agree. I just don't, in all honesty, Lakshmi, and you're way more knowledgeable than I am, but I don't know if I agree with that perspective, honestly.
That's okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. That's why I said the conversation's not over. And there's a lot that goes into what I just said, and it requires further conversation, basically.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Lakshmi, I have a question. So a person cannot practice more than one can I practice more than bhakti?
You can include, sure. You can do like a different kind of hatha yoga, physical yoga, as part of your training, part of your sadhana, sure. Prabhupada said there's no better way to keep the body fit than in hatha yoga.
Yeah, but I know that that it's the physical, which is really great, but is there a contradiction between the one each other? Not the physical, but on what the another one?
No, pranayama is used
Okay.
by in prior to chanting one's Brahman Gayatri mantra. Sanatana Goswami recommends in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, he recommends doing pranayama.
Oh.
So you see, one thing is there's a whole lot of stuff that has to be cleared away about what is yoga
Right.
because of the time and place. When we talk about yoga, according to the ancients, there was only maybe a dozen asanas maximum. Anyway, I've heard 8 to 12. That was it. And pranayama. Pranayama was there. What we have today is such a hodgepodge. Do you know that a great deal of Indian yoga was influenced by British calisthenics?
Probably.
Yeah. A lot of the influence came. Do you know why? Because when the British were there, they heard about these yogis and what powers they had, but they couldn't find any because the yogis wouldn't come down into public. They'd stay in the mountains hidden. They didn't want to be bothered with society. They gave all that society up. So they wouldn't come down. So the Brits were having a hard time finding a real yogi. So they would find this guy here and this guy there, and then whatever he would show them, they would add their own calisthenics to it, and that eventually evolved into what we see today, hundreds of asanas and making up asanas and the emphasis on asanas and all of that. That's a result of modern day yoga.
But that's part of the physical hatha yoga. But I'm talking about like other yogas, like the Panjali you mentioned Ghana yoga also. So
Yeah.
can one practice?
Well, let me tell you, they bhakti includes all that. Bhakti includes jnana and karma yoga and dhyana yoga. Let's look at it as a pie. Yoga is the pie, right? And then it may have different aspects to that pie.
Right.
But when you say I'm a bhakti yoga practitioner, it means your priority and your focus is on the practice of bhakti. And you
Okay.
may use some techniques of Patanjalian yoga or Jnana yoga, or you may use some of the techniques that were there for further evolution and development, but you're still a bhakti yoga practitioner.
Oh,
And
okay.
what makes you a bhakti yoga practitioner is the fact that your alambana, that's what Patanjali calls it, your object of meditation, your alambana is the person God, Bhagavan. That is your alambana. That is really what delineates bhakti from dhyan yoga, from jnana yoga, and it is the fact that we are hardcore meditators on that form. How
Is
many of you've been to my house, right, Trish?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, Trish.
And of course you've been many times. Mukti, you've been to my house. Srihari, Bharat. You see in every room of my house, there's a painting or picture of Krishna or Nrsimhadev, or that's because my goal is 100%,
Bhakti.
at all times to remember Krishna, because I don't know when I'm going to go. Don't know.
Angelica, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you on a particular path now so that we can compare?
No, not really. I mean, now I'm with Bhakti, but what I'm saying is that I didn't start my transformation and my path with Bhakti. So I actually started doing meditation. And when I reach out to the Bhakti, which is down in Miami, in the temple, they said they're going to do the meditation. And I was ready in my, to start like closing my eyes and all that stuff. And their meditation, it's the Yapa meditation, and I never experienced that before. And I was thinking, but I do practice the meditation, the closing your eyes and concentrating in the pranayama and different.
So previously you were transcendental meditation trained?
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The thing I want to get into with Amy is that there's no necessity to do comparison.
Okay.
There's no necessity. Um, you are attracted to what you are attracted to.
But sometimes, Lakshmi, sometimes I feel guilty when I go down to the temple and they're very orthodox with their methods, and I feel like I feel sometimes I feel like I'm not in the place.
Well, that's where a teacher helps. It helps us to sort through some of the complexities of our path.
Yeah.
Really, it really, really does.
Yeah.
Because all those questions come up,
Yeah.
Amy had a very good question, I don't feel comfortable with this or that. Yeah. Yeah. If you're not understanding the full gamut of what we're talking about, it is hard to understand that. Sure.
And I
But
think you're right, because intuition comes up in a place, like where do I feel that I'm growing and I'm the joy and the my spirit is getting enriched and I'm reaching light. So that's where it comes from. Maybe it's a meditation, like an hour meditation, 2 hour meditation, or maybe the japa meditation, or chanting Krishna all the time, or chanting other, for other divinities, what they call, but if it feels right for me, I don't want to label it. That's what I'm for.
what happens is one of the most important aspects of evolving on your path is association, the association that you keep. One of the one of the perils I find in the yoga world is the lack of commitment to your alambana. What are you going to meditate on the point of death? Ganesh, Shiva, Durga, and if you don't even know who they are, what are you going to meditate? The
Right.
point of death is it's a very traumatic time. I hate to tell people,
Yeah.
it's a traumatic time. And
Yeah.
if you're not fixed in your alambana, your object of meditation, then you're going to have to come back. And you're going to start off with confusion.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's got to be intuitive. It's got to feel right to you. But one of the principles, if Rupa Goswami says the most important thing is not knowledge, not renunciation, but sincerity.
Mhm.
Because God within your heart will reciprocate with that sincere desire to know what is truth.
Mhm.
And the quickest way, the surest way, is to find that association, that sangha,
Mhm.
that you feel intuitively like this is working for me. I think a good example, if I may use him as an example, is Sri Hari. You know, Sri Hari has been around. He lived in India for a year, and he's been around that world for a long time. And then we met, we became friends, and we started hanging out together, and he started coming to the programs, and one thing led to another. And then he finally woke up one day and he said, well, this bhakti path is my path.
Mhm.
I see that now. And it came, you know, that's why I opened up with knowing. How do you know a person, right?
Mhm.
So when you get into a sangha and you like the way the people talk, you like the way the people act, you like the qualities they exhibit, you like the kindness that they show you, you like the interest that they take in you, all these various things, and the knowledge, it's making sense. To me, the analogy I use is paint by numbers. That's where I was when I first started out. I got a paint by numbers picture, and I started connecting dots. And what helped me to connect the dots was the Bhagavad Gita. I read the compassionate teachings of Buddhism. I read Taoism. I read the Bible. I read so many things. But what caused me to start connecting the dots to see the picture of where I wanted to be, it was the wisdom of the Gita. That's why I am committed to giving it and not charging anything for it, because I want any person, to have the same opportunity that I had. That the wisdom of the Gita connected the dots for me, and then I could see where I'm going. I don't like to not know where I'm going. I like to know where I'm going. So, when we talk about yoga and meditation and all that stuff, okay, what is my alambana? What am I meditating? A candle? Nothingness? First off, I've not seen a mind be free of everything. I've not seen a person just turn their mind into nothing. There's always something going.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's just my journey, sharing you with my journey. And that's the kind of conversation I have to have. Amy, and she chooses, you know, Jnana Yoga, Brahman, and that's her choice. That's why we're given our, uh, choice.
But all of those yoga that you mentioned are the guidance of that yoga, all of them, it should be, or it's the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yoga is one. They're all included, but the focus is on the one. So I have to get going now.
Okay.
Same here.
Thank you for your questions. This is great. Great. I appreciate your wonderful questions.
All right.
And we'll see each other next week, next Tuesday.
Yes.
And have a healthy, happy, and holy week, all of you.
Hey, when is your next Love Fest?
April 26th.
April 26th. Okay.
All right.
All right.
It'll be a
Right.
real nice one too.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Happy
Hare
spring.
Krishna.
Happy
Hare
spring
Hare
equinox,
Krishna.
everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Happy spring.